everybody, it's Triple Play Week again, the third week of every month, and we are here with 3 amazing new ideas for you. I'm here with Misty and with Natalie, and this is kind of an interesting triple play for us, isn't it, girls?
Yes. Yep.
So what we chose to work with today were our 10-inch papers. So these are foundation papers. So basically you get 3 ideas on what to do with these papers. But usually we build off of a single block.
Or shape or template.
Or shape or template and make that different. But this time,
Yeah.
these templates, these papers, completely different ideas. So Misty, I guess you're up.
All right.
We'll let you go first and we'll get started right into it.
Sounds good. So this is my quilt.
Which is amazing.
Thank
by the
you.
way.
I love it. It came out even better than I hoped, and sometimes it's really fun when you have an idea in your head and it just really works.
It really works.
It worked out.
Because not all of them
It's
do.
so beautiful.
Thank you. This one I decided to call Wanderlust. It kind of had adventure vibes to me, and
well,
so
and the fabric is
it's
darling
so
too.
beautiful.
It's pretty fabric.
It is. I really like it, and it's very, very easy. To make this quilt, you're going to need 1 package of 10-inch squares, and I used Tea with Bee by Katherine Lenius for Riley Blake. You'll also need 2 rolls of 2.5-inch background strips, which includes your inner border, or you can use 4.5 yards of background fabric. For the outer border, you'll need 1 1/4 yards, and I used the same fabric for the binding, and that's 3/4 yard. For the backing, you need 5 yards of vertical seams or 2.5 yards of 108. You'll also need the 10-inch paper piecing squares, and I recommend the 10-inch square template. All right, so let me show you how we made this. This is all based on our 10-inch squares, which is what our paper piecing squares are. And so I am going to cut my entire layer cake into 2.5-inch strips. So if you had a jelly roll, you could do this as well. But
honestly,
I had a layer cake.
let me just
Good
say,
to know.
let me just say for that, this is the most versatile
Yes.
of all the pre-cuts because you can get charms, you can get jelly rolls, and all of them.
All the sizes you need.
But if you have a jelly roll, this would be a great quilt for that as well.
It would work for that too. So we're going to start by cutting this into 4 2.5-inch strips.
It always surprises me a little bit. People will say, well, I just have fat quarters. What can I make with those? And I'm like, well, you could cut them into 2.5-inch strips or 5-inch squares or all that. And they're like,
You can make anything you want.
Yeah, people don't think about that. They think they're kind of stuck in that box.
Exactly. So we're going to leave 2 of these rectangles whole. They stay 2.5 by 10. And then one of our strips we're going to cut down into 4.5-inch rectangles. So 2.5 by 4.5. There's 1. And make sure we're straight. And this is waste. We can just toss that. And I like to keep these
Tiny little piece,
tiny
though.
little piece. And then from this one, we need 2.5-inch squares. So we need 2 of those. Everything is in 2s. And then this piece, since it's such cute fabric, you're going to want to hold on to for another project. So just set that aside.
I'm like, wait, what's happening?
It's just extra, but you can
Goes
just
in
hold
your
on
stash.
to it.
It should go with this little guy.
There we go. Yeah, you might need that tiny little 1-inch
need
strip
that,
for
yeah.
something. So then these are how you cut all of your package of 10-inch squares. And then you're going to need those 2 packages of background fabric. And so what we're going to cut is 3-inch pieces, and those pair with your 2.5-inch squares.
So they're 2.5 wide by 3 inches long.
Exactly, 2.5 by 3. Thank you for pointing that out. And you need double of all of your background pieces. So even though these go with the 2.5, you actually need 4 of the 2.5 by 3-inch rectangles per block. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
because you need 1 on either side.
1 on either side, exactly. And then these are 6-inch, 2.5 by 6-inch, and that pairs with the 4.5-inch.
And do you need double of those?
Double of those
Okay.
across the board. And then for our 10-inch, we have 5-inch, 2.5 by 5-inch rectangles. And so this is kind of how everything goes together. So let's go ahead and make these now. And so basically what we're going to do on this one is sew it on one side with a 1/4-inch seam just right here. I'll have you do that.
Now I'm ready. I have no idea how you made this, so this is kind of fascinating to me. And I love these things because we all do it so differently. We think so differently.
I know, it's so fun to see how they all come together.
All right.
All right, so we'll have Nat press that one back for me.
All right.
I'm losing my pedal here.
Yeah, it was sliding a bit. There we go. And then now we're going to put the other one here so that when we sew this back, it kind of makes like a little V.
Oh.
Okay, so then sew that on that
All right.
side.
So the seam side is always the 2.5 width, and then the 3-inch goes long ways out.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then we press that. There we go. And then now I have, like I said, you're going to need 2 of each of these for your blocks. I have one ready to go. Okay, so we're going to trim this, and you can see here that I've lined this edge of my fabric up on the 45 line of my ruler. And I want to make sure I have a 1/4 inch overhang here. And if I just go point to point, it should be really close, but I just like to check to make sure it's not too wonky. And then now I'm going to trim this off like so. And so these are going to be our triangle corners. I'm going to go ahead and do that again.
For me, using the ruler, like things like checking the 45-inch line and checking, you know, to make sure that this is actually a 1/4 inch, that just gives me so much more confidence.
Exactly.
Like, I know it's going to work.
You know it's all going to work out, and so we can trim this one too. And so our 2 outside corners are done. And so then now we can move on to the next size, which this, we're just going to treat it like a snowball. And so we're going to lay this just like so, and sew from this corner to this corner. So we could draw a line, or you can use the diagonal seam tape.
I will use the diagonal seam tape.
Perfect.
Since I've become friends with that, it's like my best friend.
Yep. And then we can trim this off.
And these little pieces.
I did kind of make a nest for myself because there is quite a bit of pressing and trimming, and so we'll press that back.
Well, all of our, you know, when you go to set up your sewing space,
Yeah.
all of our sewing spaces are set up very nest-like. You
exactly.
know, we
just
work
kinda,
within a little area, and so just remember when you're sewing, fixing your own space, you know,
you want to have everything close to you and make it convenient. And so now we're going to do the same thing, but in the opposite direction. So I want this to overlap here so that I keep my point, and we're just going to go this direction, corner to corner. There's that one.
And this lines up exactly on the top of this strip.
Yep, exactly.
There we go.
And then I'll let you go ahead and get started. We're going to do the exact same idea with our 10-inch and 5-inch strips, except for they're not going to meet in the middle. And so we're just going to lay this on here, corner to corner, and on this side, the opposite way, corner to corner. So I'll let you do that while I trim this. There we go.
Every time we do one of these, we always think, it'd be so nice if all 3 of us were doing this.
I know, it's nice to sew together.
It's nice to sew together.
There we go, and then we'll trim this off.
That one's just a hair wonky. Will that matter?
I think it'll be okay. It's
Okay.
pretty forgiving. There we go. Thanks, Nat.
No problem.
Okay, so then these are all of the components that we need. 2 of our triangles, 2 of our little points there, and then 2 of these pieces here. Now that we have all of our components ready to go, let's go ahead and grab one of our paper piecing squares, and I'll show you why these are helpful. First thing, let's fold it in half and give it just a crease, corner to corner. And then we're going to open it up, and we're going to use our ruler, and going the opposite way from that fold, we want to mark a 1/4 inch over from our corner point and draw a line. So that's what I'm going to do here. You can see this point is a 1/4 inch in, this point is a 1/4 inch in, and we're just going to draw a line all the way down. There we go. And so to begin, we're going to start with our largest kind of wedge, almost like a half hexie. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. We're going to start with one of those, and we're going to, you can press this in half, just give it a nice finger crease, and we are going to line that little crease up with our fold. And so we know it's exactly center. And we always want the wider part of this to be going out, away from the middle.
That's a really good mantra to remember.
Yep.
The wide to the out, wide out,
And
wide out,
so
wide out.
same on this one. We're just going to give this one a little press.
And that line that you drew, that's 1/4 of an inch off from the center so that when you put the seam in, it will be right on the center.
Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome.
And so
that's
then
so smart.
we can line these up here. And we just want to make sure everything stays together and our pieces should all match.
And then you're also matching the
Yep.
fold with the fold.
Yep, so that our centers are all lined up. And you could glue your first layer if you want. You could put a pin in here to kind of hold everything together. That's what I would probably do, just out here.
I
to
would probably glue.
That's
Put a
fine.
strip, glue that thing on there.
And then just so I know my middles are staying in that center point, and then we can just sew our 1/4 inch seam all the way down this side.
Okay. All right,
That's very
so
cool.
I just want to make sure that this is,
On its
so does
line.
this go on the line?
Yep, the
All
edge
right.
of the
Well, right
fabric should,
next to it.
right, the edge of the fabric should be,
Right next to the line,
yep,
right?
exactly.
Okay. So much pressure.
You're doing
so
great.
much pressure.
It's going to be so good.
Get rid of this pin.
There we go.
Stay on the line. And then make sure these stay lined up and on the line. That line is super helpful.
It is really helpful. Okay, and then Nat, I'll go ahead and have you press our top
Sure.
layer back.
All right.
And this is one where I found it really important to press in between. I didn't feel like the finger press was quite enough.
Keeps everything really
Yep, really
flat.
flat and pretty how we want it. That looks great. And so next up we have these pieces, and again we can find that center and put a little finger press, and the wide part goes out. And so actually, now that I'm thinking, we can just put that point right on the
And
our crease.
You're going to do that on both sides?
On both sides,
All
exactly.
right, let me grab this one first because that one's going to fall off.
Yep. So we can just
All
sew
right,
down
so
that side.
I am making sure that point is lined up. Making sure this stays on the line.
Turn it around and do it on the other side.
I like these kind of projects because it doesn't feel like you get to do both, and then it's like,
Yeah.
it seems like half the work kind of, and then you're done.
It does make it feel fast.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Well, and honestly, foundation piecing is one of those things that's old as the hills. People have been doing foundation piecing, you know, forever. And, I mean, I've done it where you've used muslin squares. I've done it where I've used
Exactly.
phone books. I mean, you guys don't even know what a phone book is.
I
but
do. I
you-
actually got one in the mail the other day, and I was like, this is still a thing?
I
was
so
surprised.
you know.
But-
I used to use like the hamburger wrappers, you know, whatever we did.
Whatever works.
And we just
Yep.
came out with the papers just for ease, you know, but you can literally foundation piece on
There we
anything.
go. Piece didn't go quite
That's
out.
okay. And so then you can see how this is coming together, and then we're just going to finish this off with our triangles. And again, we can just line that point up on either side where we creased it.
So easy.
And we can sew.
I just love this.
There's a ton of great applications for papers, for foundation piecing, and you can get really, really complex in the artsy. And I love those projects.
I do too. There's so many beautiful
I feel like we're just touching on like
Yeah.
the beginner aspect of like what you could do with
We
foundation
really are. We
papers.
really are.
Well, and honestly, it was a bit of a challenge for me to figure out what I wanted to do, because prior to this, I had only ever done like crumb
Like
piecing and string quilts.
Yes.
That's all I had ever used the papers for. And so I was like, I want to think outside the box, but I
Yeah.
don't even know where to go. But it was really, really fun. There we go.
All right.
That's so cool.
That looks so,
Awesome.
so cool. So if you flip it over, you can see our 10-inch paper, just from taking seams, gets a little bit wonky. And so because I
Yeah.
wanted my squares to be exactly 10 inches, and I also wanted to make sure that I didn't lose any of these points, I decided to use the 10-inch square template, and I just laid this on here.
If you lose a point,
It's not a huge deal, but I just...
it's not.
I just
Life
tried.
will go on. Life
Right.
will go on. Yeah, but it's good to try.
The nice thing about that is you can kind of tweak it, you know, a little bit one way or the other.
Exactly. And
watch them
this
all.
is going to be close on this side, but at least it gives me some on all of them. And so now I'm just going to trim this off.
Now, a lot of times we'll say use the paper to trim with,
Yep.
but literally when you take seams on paper, it shrinks it up. So you don't want to use the paper as your pattern on this.
Not always.
Not always.
It can depend on the project.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and turn that.
And also, one of the tips for using the papers is you want to like shorten up your stitch length just a little bit.
That's true.
Because it just makes it easier to tear off the papers, and it also keeps those stitches, you know, they're not as easy to pull apart.
Exactly.
Because there's a little bit of stress when you pull the paper off the back of it.
But you can see this is our finished block.
It's so cute.
It's so cute, and it actually comes together really quick. And because we use an entire pack of 10-inch squares, it's just laid out 6 across by 7 down. So
42 blocks.
42 blocks. And I just had them all the same way, so they're all sitting in the quilt, just like so. You know.
So great.
And then we've got a 2.5 inner border and a 5-inch outer border. So.
Beautiful.
Love it.
And what does it measure, Nat? Do you remember? Do we have that?
70 by 80.
70 by 80. Okay.
Oh, and let's look at this quilting pattern
Oh,
because
yes.
this is a kind of a new pattern.
Yeah,
It's leaves
it's these really
I
cute
think it's
little
called
leaves.
leaves and loops.
or leaves and loops. Is that right? I was going to say vines and loops.
I don't know if you can
Look
see
at
it
the
better on the
back.
Oh,
back.
that fabric is so pretty.
It's
I love
really
how
pretty.
quilting looks on a solid piece of cloth.
Yeah,
The
I
whole
do
cloth
too.
quilts.
So pretty. So who's up next?
I think it's you,
I think
Nat.
it's me.
Awesome.
So the quilt that I made this time is behind me, and I named it Skyward. And I thought it was kind of cool because all of these points kind of point up to the sky like flying geese or dragon scales or fish scales or sevens. There's a lot of different things that come to mind when you look at this, and it's interesting to hear everybody's perspective of what they see. But it's kind of
really
cool.
fun.
It's really
It's
beautiful.
really fun.
And you'll see there's a lot of different ways that it could have been laid out. So it has a lot of creative potential.
I love that.
It does.
So let me show you. This is the block. Whoops, let me just grab one of them. This is the block that we're talking about, and I will show you how to make that.
All right.
To make my quilt, you'll need 1 roll of 2.5-inch print strips, and I've used Tochi by Debbie Maddy for Moda Fabrics. You'll also need 1.5 yards of accent fabric, and that includes your border. You'll need 3 3/4 yards of backing, and then I also recommend the 10-inch paper piecing squares and a glue pen. Okay, so we are going to start by taking one of our papers, and we're going to put a little crease in it, just a quick little finger press, just like you did for yours.
Yep.
And then the next thing we're going to do, I want to talk about the periwinkle blocks. So each one of these blocks, you can see, it starts with this little periwinkle shape in the corner. And I use the same fabric on my border, so they're all the same. I thought it would look really cool if they all matched, and you could mix them up. You could use a charm square if you wanted to and have them all scrappy. But
you took it from your accent fabric.
yes, my accent fabric and my inner border are the same.
The same.
Yep, so what you're going to do, you're going to cut a 5-inch strip, and you'll find that it's really easy to cut many of these at once. So it's a width of fabric strip, fold it in half. I'm going to go ahead and fold it one more time so that you're cutting 4 at a time.
And these are made for the charm pack, so the 5-inch strip is perfect because you
Right.
can just sail along.
Yep, so then I'm going to use one of these straight sides, make sure it's lined up nice and straight, and we're going to cut 4 at a time. Is pretty simple. Once you get more layers than that, it gets a little bit trickier to cut. Sorry.
The under the arm cut.
Yep.
She's a wild one.
Living on the edge. Okay, so then we're going to take our little glue stick, and we'll just need one of these. And I would, if I was assembling this quilt, I would go ahead and do my prep ahead of time and glue down all of my periwinkles and get those papers prepped. It's super easy.
And this is a little interesting. You do have to look for which side is the right side.
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters, but it's fun to.
It's very difficult to tell which one is right side on this, which makes it totally versatile.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to put your glue right down here in the corner, and I just do a few little stripes, and then it's important to go ahead and stick your fabric down quick because this stuff dries really fast. So line it up right there in the corner, and just give it a little firm little press. And if you find that that's not lining up, you can
reposition.
You can just reposition it. Yeah, just readjust it. No big deal. Okay, so we're going to start by adding our color strips. And what you do need to know about this is that because whichever side you start on is fine, it doesn't matter. But because the next strip is going to cover, you want to make sure that you have a good 2.5 inches of overhang so that you don't end up with like gaps.
Okay.
So we are going to start.
Now I noticed on your quilt back here, some you did with the gold and some you did with the silver. Is there a reason for that?
Well, so when I started out, I wanted the gold to be the centers, but I didn't have quite as many gold as I did
So it depends on how many's in the roll.
Right, or it was one or the other.
Yeah.
So I had to swap because I needed more of the long pieces for the next row.
I think
this
for me, that's what made me see it in a scrappy light. I think this would in a different fabric. This would just be such a different quilt.
I look forward to trying it in different fabric.
Really fun.
So, okay, so we're going to start on this side, and we're going to line up that edge. This outside edge, you don't have to worry about a lot of hangover. We're just going to let this one go over the edge because it has the selvage on it, and then just stitch from the edge of the paper up here to the edge of the periwinkle.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. And just try to keep it lined up along the edge of the fabric, but if you get off a little bit, it's no big deal. This is a really forgiving project. Yep.
Okay, good. Oops.
That's perfect. Okay, so then what we're going to do, we're just going to press this back a little bit. And what you have to remember is that your next strip is going to stitch along this direction, so you need to make sure that your cut goes in that same direction. So you could line up a ruler if you were worried about it, but typically I just kind of cut and go as I go.
Yeah.
And so I would just go out here a little bit and just trim it off.
Okay.
Yep. So then your next, will you press that?
Sure.
It does go a lot easier if you press in between each one. So the whole little sewing nest where you have cutting and pressing is
just
very,
do it all in your spot.
very convenient. Okay, so line this up, and on this strip, you'll want to flip it over because what you want to make sure of is that this cut can go all the way out. And see how this point is a little bit down?
Finish that point.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pull that up a little bit because you just want to make sure that when you trim off that edge, and when you attach the next strip, that it'll be completely covered.
That makes sense. I would have never thought of that. I would have sewn that wrong 100 times.
You keep looking at this line.
I did that,
but
but you have to make sure that you have enough fabric to continue that seam on the other side.
That makes sense.
Not super tricky, just kind of something to think about. Okay. And continue to remind. Now you don't have to stitch it all the way up here. You can still just start on the fabric.
Okay.
And then your next one will be gray?
Next one, yep. We're going to make a second one of these guys. So
there we go.
We'll fold this back and trim it off right here. And then trim this just along that edge so that you have room to go all the way out. And then if you will press that.
Perfect.
We'll grab a cute blue one. I like this. This one is cute because it has the little, almost looks like little flowers.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to do gray next. Whoops,
got ahead of ourselves.
I got ahead of myself. Yep, I'll pick that same fabric in gray.
It's such fun fabric.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
So then just do this other side. It's kind of log cabin style where you just do one side and then the next and keep on going. And just keep lining it up and go all the way down to the end.
All right. Oops. This paper wants to curl on me every time.
We're going to flip and we're going to make sure that this edge follows that line. And if you'll press that, that'd be great.
Always my pleasure.
The pressing lady. So this one can just go like this and just make sure it covers that whole thing, which on this side, you're not going to have too much because you're at the corner.
Right.
So really, if you just go out to the edge, you'll be okay.
Okay.
right. Keep trimming.
I can see how when you prep all of your papers at the beginning, you could sit
you can
and
do
sew.
a whole bunch of the same side.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I wanted my strips to match, but if you did them scrappy, that would be even more fun because they
true.
can just kind of like braid into each other.
Yeah.
Let's see, we're looking for a blue one. How about this kind of stripey
That's
look?
pretty.
Do you need the same on both sides?
Yep. So you just have to make sure that it'll cover both directions, and this is at least double,
yeah.
so we are good.
Okay.
Because now that we've covered the corner of that block, we don't have to worry about the fabric continuing out in that way. It just has to cover the paper.
True, true.
There's that one.
So we'll flip this back and trim it. And just do this other side
Okay.
with the other half of that strip.
Perfect.
I think these would look so cool if we use different size strips, like maybe some 1.5s or 1 inchers or
Oops, I got a little
2s
narrow
or
there.
3s, just kind of.
I don't think it'll
Does that matter or no?
No, it doesn't
Okay.
matter.
All right, I'll keep on sewing then.
Unless,
As long as you catch the fabric
yeah, as long as you
underneath.
catch the fabric under, we're totally
I think it's
good.
good.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I don't know if you can see, but it looks like we're going to have just a hair of a corner here.
Okay.
And it would probably fit in the 1/4-inch seam, but in order to make sure that I don't end up with holes or things that don't catch, I'm going to put just a little bit of fabric to cover that.
You want me
Okay.
to press this?
Yep, that would be great. So I'm going to just use this little gray piece, and I just cut off a couple
And
little
you
chunks.
can see in the quilt where you
And
have those little corners.
So you can, yeah. So here and here, I just have some little bits of fabric that ended up in the corners because they didn't quite finish out the edge. But that doesn't bother me at all. I think it looks really cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
that's
does. It
very
just
cool.
continues the
Yeah.
pattern.
And all we're doing here is covering the paper so that we can end up with a 10-inch block.
You want me to do this side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoops.
There we go.
Thank you.
Ta-da! You're welcome.
All right, one more quick press of those little corners, and then we'll trim it up.
You know what's really funny is looking at this, you're like, how is this going to square? Because
Right,
it looks
so like a diamond.
Yes.
Yeah. All right,
kite
so the
shape.
squaring, we're going to go ahead and flip it over. And we're going to use this template because the paper does shrink a bit. And you can see that it shrunk like a lot right here and just a little bit over here. So I like to use the paper to go ahead and make sure it's really square. And I line it up with the corner of my periwinkle so that stays.
Yeah.
But then I'll go ahead and cut this off. And this one. And then I'm going to go this way. All right. And that is our finished block.
Looks awesome.
It looks awesome.
Yep. So the next thing is just to tear these papers off, and they're super, super easy to tear off. If you're having any trouble at all, you can just kind of give the seam a little tug and it'll just kind of separate.
They just kind of pop loose.
Yep. It's a great activity. If you get them all done, you can just sit and watch a show and rip them all off at the same time.
Exactly.
You keep a garbage bag handy.
Yes.
I was doing this on my desk one time, and my desk was
Just
full of them.
mounded with
I'm
the
like, I
paper.
better put these in the trash because
Yep.
I don't want anybody else to have to see this.
We all tear the papers off. The glue part comes off, no problem,
Yep.
even though we've glued it down.
I do that too.
Yeah, it stays in place for when you need it to stay in place, and then when you don't, it comes right off.
Yep.
So you have a few more blocks here. I'd like to see some other layouts.
Okay.
Because I
Very
can
cool.
see this several different ways.
Yeah.
All right, so I did have a lot of options for laying it out, and I have a couple of different blocks here, so
This is really a fun one to play with ideas.
I'm just going to scoot
Move more
that
of
a
this
little
out
bit
of the way,
farther
yeah.
over. So what if we put all of these to the center and then had these guys come in? We could make big, kind of a
Like a star
more,
on those.
yeah,
I
more
love
periwinkle
that.
periwinkle style.
Butterflies.
And then, yeah, or you could do 2 in and 2 out.
you
you
can
know.
do rows where they
that's
kind
so
of go up and
fun.
down.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I had something going where I had it like this, and then I turned them out so it made like
Oh,
a,
wow.
whoops, not like that, So it kind of makes like this long blue
my.
heart. So yeah, there's several different ways to
many
do
options.
it. I ended on putting them all the same direction, and I just think it turned out great.
It's
So I
so
hope
cute.
you
Beautiful
enjoyed
map.
my tutorial on Skyward. It measures 56 square, and we have a nice little 5-inch border. And the backing is this beautiful, streaky, it looks very indigo dyed, which I think is so pretty.
Beautiful. And then the quilting pattern.
The quilt pattern is Botanical Blossoms. It's one of my favorite because it has such a great little variety of flowers.
It really does.
It's cute and
Really
elegant.
cute.
So pretty.
And I guess it's my turn.
Yep. Let's see what's next.
So I'm super excited about my project. I just think it's so cheerful. It's so bright and happy.
So cute.
This actually looks like fabric to me, like made fabric, but it was
beautiful.
all out of a jelly roll strip, and so it's just super quick and easy to make. So to make my quilt, you're going to need 1 roll of 2.5-inch print strips, and we have used Dewdrops by Whistler Studios for Windham Fabrics. You're going to need a roll of background strips, and we've used these 1.5-inch wide skinny strips from Kona. You're going to need 1 1/4 yards for your outer border, and for your backing, you're going to need 4 1/4 yards of vertical seams or 2 1/4 yards of 108 wide. I also used the 10-inch square template from Missouri Star, the 10-inch paper piecing squares, and a sew line fabric glue pen. So let me show you how to do this. So what we did was we took our strips and we put 5 sets of 6 strips together like this, and we just sewed them long. Sewed all your strips together, and you're going to have 5 of 6 sets. I keep getting those numbers mixed up. So 5 of these sewn together, and then all of these are then going to be cut into 2.5-inch pieces like this. And so we're just going to lay our ruler on here, cut our 2.5-inch pieces, and you're going to do that to your whole pile of all of these. And you'll have a big pile of all these different strips because we want to scrap this up. We want it to look, different and
So fun.
So then with the rest of the strips, you're going to have 3 sets of 3s right here. And those are also going to be scrappy. And these ones you cut at 1.5. So we're just going to kind of lay these out here so they're even. I've got 2 folded together. And I'm just going to put my ruler in here and cut these at 1.5 like this.
Did you ever fold and cut your 6s that
yes.
way?
Oh, I
You
stacked them
You
up.
did.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Brave.
Yeah, because they
It
don't,
is
they don't-
brave because I
Well,
feel like I would make them crooked somehow.
I would worry with all the seams, but that's just me.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing about it is that, so if you're worried, if you have the seams, then you have to just be a little careful because it's twice the thickness
Right.
already.
Yeah.
And so you just don't cut as many stacked up. But if you fold 2 and cut them,
You think it'll be
It
okay?
worked out okay.
it worked out just
right.
fine.
That's awesome.
The other thing you're going to need are some 1.5-inch white strips. And can I just tell you how thankful I am that we have pre-cuts like this that are already cut?
Saves
It's
so
so
much
good.
time.
Yeah.
Saves so much time. And so now we can get ready to construct our, there you go, the special
Thanks.
sticker.
Yep.
We can get ready to construct our block, and it's super easy. So I had just come off of making a string quilt for my trailer and our camping quilt, and it was stripped down the middle. And when I realized we had to do a triple play with papers, I was like, oh! And so I love this idea because it's super easy, super forgiving, and just one of those things that is just quick and easy. So what I did on mine is I just put my finger on my paper down here in the corner, held it, and did a glue line straight across the middle and just eyeballed that.
Okay.
Then I took my white strip like this, and I'm going to just cut off my little selvage. You don't actually have to cut off your selvage, but, I did. And then I'm kind of going to center this up so it falls right in the middle of that, and center this one up, and just press that on there like that. It makes it much easier when you're sewing it not to drag around a tail, so I just clipped this off. And so then what we're going to do is we're going to sew a 2.5-inch strip to this side right here. And you have to make sure that it reaches both sides. You want to make sure that it lays in there really nicely. I'll let you do that, Natalie.
Okay.
Because we're going to sew one of those to both sides of that. And so you don't even really have to worry too much about the 1/4 inch, but you'll notice these are matching up. And every once in a while, you see some that aren't perfectly matched up, and that's because my seam isn't exactly perfect. So it's pretty forgiving, but if you want them to generally line up, you know, you just want to kind of watch and make sure that your seam allowance stays pretty close to the same.
Okay.
And Natalie and Misty have great seam allowances. I mean, they have a great straight seam.
We try.
You're funny.
Always seems to me.
Do you want to
It
just
seems
add?
to me. Now we're just going to let you press
Go ahead
that real
and press.
quick.
Okay.
And then I'm going to grab a different piece here.
There we go.
All right, and then we're just going to put this on the other side of our white strip right here, making sure that we catch both corners. And sometimes it's like right on the edge of that.
Okay.
I love these projects because they really come together so fast.
They're so fast, yeah.
Yeah.
And you get this stunning effect.
Yeah.
You know, to me, this really looked like the board game Candyland. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, and like you worked really hard.
Like I worked really hard.
Yeah.
My kids always loved playing that game Candyland, and that's what I thought of. We named it Candy Lane.
Which I think is adorable too with all those colorful squares.
Absolutely. It's just so cheerful and bright.
Yep.
All right, so now you're going to iron that.
Okay.
And then we're going to take a strip, and we're going to put, I have no idea what happened to my other
To
strip.
the one you had.
But I'm sure, oh,
It's
here it
in there
is.
somewhere.
There it is.
I will come back upon it some. This is how my desk is always piled. So Natalie, what I want you to do with this is I'm going to have you lay this on here, and so this one down here, and then you can come back over here and just do this.
Okay.
We'll cut them both at the same time.
Easy.
That's a little trick of the trade, just a
Yeah.
quick, easy way. We're going to sew a strip on
Sewing
both
hack.
sides.
Anything to save time.
Well, and sometimes, you know, I always think that. I always think anything to save time. I'm like, what am I saving this time for?
Well, that's true.
Sometimes it's really good to enjoy the process, but everything I do seems to kind of happen at hyperspeed,
Yeah,
and so
that's true.
I just feel like that's just my personality and my nature. Yep,
I guess
so
it
you
is
just do
important
that.
sometimes to just slow down and enjoy it too. So
It really is.
Yeah.
That journey. That's
But
Absolutely.
if you go faster, then you can make more quilts.
That's right.
That's
You
true.
can make more. There was a whole thing on the MSQC All-Stars page the other day about this lady's like, so I have all this fabric. Is that bad? And I'm like, you are a curator of textiles,
yes,
you know?
Exactly.
And then this other lady, haven't you read that thing, you know, he who dies with the most fabric wins? And
Yeah.
I almost commented, because my comment is always, he who dies with the most fabric hasn't been sewing fast enough.
That's right.
You know, and so it's just kind of however you look at those things.
love
Anyway,
that.
if you could press those back.
You bet.
And so now these little ones come in. Now, because there's only 3 sets of these, you don't get a lot of mix-up going on with these. And so
You can't tell though, looking at
No,
the
you
quilt.
really can't.
you can't tell at all. So when I put them together, I watch. So you can see like this one and this one and this one. They're all the same. But because I put one on going this direction and one on going this direction, they match up differently. So we're going to set
Nice.
this little guy right next to that.
Okay.
And we'll use one of these, so we have just a little different on the other side. And I did, when I was putting one together, I did look at those and make sure there were no 2 purples together or no 2 greens. But once the quilt is all finished and you're looking at it, oh, I did see, like there's 2 grays right down here.
Oh, funny.
I'm not mad about it.
I would have never seen it.
Not going to die
Where'd it
about
go?
it.
I have a little,
Oh, a little
the
tiny
little guy.
one?
There it
you
is.
go.
I just lost him under the machine.
Yeah, now this is
happens.
one, because we're sewing on both sides of that center seam, we're not sewing across at all, we're just sewing both sides. It's going to scrunch up that paper. You're gonna lose a little bit of your paper. The nice thing about it is that there is enough on here so that it really gets, you know, you really know to cover the square.
Right,
and
that's
so
true.
it just works great.
Gives you a good guideline. Here we
Yep.
go.
Now we're going to put one more white
Okay.
piece on both sides. And you'll notice I didn't cut any of these to length except for my
Middle one, the first one.
my Jelly Roll strips.
Yeah.
And so the rest of these are just little bits. And again, like Natalie, we're going to end up with some little corners that need to be covered. And I have some little squares cut somewhere, but I think I'll just cut a couple more right here because I can't seem to put my hand on them.
They have a tendency of wandering off.
Oh my gosh, you guys, if you could sew with me on my desk, you would really know how things wander off.
It's not just you, though.
No.
It happens to all of us.
Yep.
I'm always like this. Where is my, All right, so if you will, let me clip this back.
Cut that.
And clip this. And then if you will iron that back, I'm going to have you add these. Now,
Oops.
I'm sure there is a measurement for these in the pattern. But the way I did it was sometimes, like when I'm squaring up these, like this piece that I cut off will be big enough to use on a corner.
I did that with mine too.
And so I saved
Yeah.
some of those little pieces. And then also like these, where you can put them on this way and do it, you could also cut them diagonally.
You'll be able to use
And,
a lot more of that.
and get both of them. So go ahead and sew those on. We'll just do it the big way. But just so you guys know, it really is a small scrappy piece. It's about
Yeah, you can conserve
half of a
fabric
2.5
pretty
inch
well.
square.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super easy to, oh, here you go. It's super easy to come up with those little tiny pieces for the corners.
Yep.
We'll let Misty
There you
iron
go.
this.
More press.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, gonna move some of this stuff out of the way.
There we go.
All right, so this is what you look like at the end of the day. it's a little bit of a mess, but that's what I love, these 10-inch square plates. And we're gonna put it on here, and you can see our paper has still kept the shape, but we've moved in a little bit over here and a little bit over here. But what we're doing, what I'm looking for right now is I'm looking for this point to be in the middle of my white square, because that is my anchoring strip on the whole square. So as long as
great tip,
this is in the middle of these, and I'm covering all my edges, I look to make sure that all my edges are covered, then I'm just going to trim along here. And I'm not like Natalie, I can't do the whole twisty-turny, so we're going to do this. And I can also go around, but this would not be the place to make, make that bad boo-boo. All right, so here's our piece. And like Natalie said, this is one of those where, give it a little pull like this. And all those papers have now pretty much released on the back. You can just kind of lift them off. They come up super easy. And I make quilts to be used and loved and worn out. I'm a utilitarian quilter, and so if this were a piece of wall art, I wouldn't even mind if I didn't take the paper off. But because I'm going to have this washed, I'll want to take that paper off. So now let's look at how these go together, because this is super fun to me. Misty, can you press that corner down right there? So when you put them together, I put them together in big blocks like this. Oh, now see, I would not have that, so we're going to flip him around.
I think it looks kind of cool. It makes it look like you somehow have a corner piece there instead of a... I don't mind it.
Instead of the two pieces,
Yeah, no, we don't mind it, but also, here's one more. I'm going to say, wait, I thought I had one more.
You had another.
You
I
did.
had another.
Oh,
Look at that.
So
See how
cute.
cool that is? And so I
That's
actually
very
made
cute.
huge big blocks like this.
I
And
was just
so
going to
then
ask
put
if you
together.
sewed these together first.
Yes. Now, again, with all the other things that we've done, if we did this whole row, we could do a whole chevron row, and the next row can wait.
Any block that has like a line down the middle is essentially a half square triangle and can go into all of those different designs.
All those different things.
It can create stars. It can create, all
Absolutely.
the triangle,
could-
around the world patterns.
You could actually have the quilt that,
They could all go one
running
direction.
the one direction.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at the quilt. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of these big blocks on here. It makes a great quilt. It's about 70 by 70, and so it's a nice size. We've got a big 6-inch border out here. This is our backing back here.
I love that.
This fabric
So
is
cute.
just so fun, isn't it?
With the little metallic.
I
beautiful.
love the little
Flecks.
gold flecks, and this quilting pattern is called Sticky Buns. It's just around and around. It's one of my favorites. I use it a lot. Anyway, it's just a great way to use papers and strips. It would be fun to see this all scrappy, like when I did my camper quilt, it was all blue and green strips, and it's just fun to do. So I hope you enjoyed my paper piecing project for the triple play. So we hope you enjoyed this month's triple play on our 10-inch paper pieces from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you are not already part of the Missouri Star Quilt family, you can hit the subscribe button below so you won't miss a thing. And if you click that bell, it'll notify you every time a new tutorial comes out. See you next Friday.